I'm Mackenzie Mindell. I work with our local government leadership program team and lead this annual certification cohort. We're going to talk today about our 2026 LEED for Cities certification cohort. We're really glad to have a few cohort members join the call as well to talk about their experience. We're also going to talk about the history of USGBC and our program, the specific rating system that participants will work on through certification, the general overview of what our national annual certification cohort is, and then learn and hear from the experiences of a past certification cohort member and one that's currently certifying. We want to leave plenty of opportunity for us all to be able to ask questions of current participants and ask general questions as well. We want this to be conversational, even though it is a webinar format. But first, I want to introduce you to three staff we have communicating to you all today. We also have our intern and another staff member on the call. Feel free to say hello in the chat. But first, we'll hear from our Vice President of Sustainable Cities, Hillary Varnador, our Associate Director for Client Solutions, David Abel, and myself throughout today. And first, I'm going to hand it to Hillary to start us off.
All right. Thanks, Mackenzie, and welcome everyone. This is an exciting call every year. First to see who registers, because then we know if you register, you're interested in the cohort, and we get really excited at this time of year as the applications start coming in for the annual cohort program. So next slide, I'm just going to give a little background on USGBC just so folks are clear on who we are and what we do. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., although we've already put in the chat that we're from all around the country. Many of us work remote. But USGBC is committed to transforming the way we design, build, and operate our buildings, communities, and cities. If you go to the next slide, you may know this, but more than 25 years ago, we launched the LEED rating system, which established the first baseline for green building standards. LEED is a framework for high-performing, healthy, cost-saving, resilient, and efficient buildings and spaces. Next. In addition to advancing the global adoption of LEED, USGBC does a lot of things. So we maintain a number of other certification and credentialing programs. We're going to talk about LEED for Cities today, but our kind of sister program, LEED for Communities, is another interesting one that you may be wanting to check out. You can see all those programs on the left side of the screen. We also educate the green building and sustainability community. We actually just got back from Greenbuild. We were in LA just a week ago, but we also support advocacy and policy initiatives around the country and globe. And we have a new global policy staff member who happens to be in Belém in Brazil right now with our Senior Policy Council, learning what's going on at the global scale on climate change issues at the COP, which is really exciting. Next slide. So we're here today to learn about the LEED for Cities certification cohort. The cohort is actually a program, a component of our larger local government leadership program. So back in 2024, we expanded our program offerings to include in-person leadership summits and short-term accelerators to connect with local leaders around the country and reduce barriers to entry by offering new forms of peer learning. And just this past year, you can go to the next slide, we actually met more than 575 people representing 90 local governments around the US. And I'm sure I saw in the registrations that many of you are on today's call or planning to get on in the next hour. So I do want to thank those of you that came out to our summits and participated in our accelerators already in 2025. Just thank you for coming out and being a part of that success. We've had a lot of fun around the US this year. We're really excited to support you on your sustainability journeys. And just thanks to everyone that's here today to learn about the cohort and how it fits into the work that you do in local government. So next up, oh, and soon enough, we're here to talk about the cohort today, but you will be hearing soon about our leadership summits and accelerators for 2026. We also have a full suite of program offerings planned, and they will be updated to our website and on all of our LinkedIn pages soon. But now we're going to turn it over to David Abel. He's going to give us some background on LEED for Cities, specifically version 4.1, the rating system and certification program that we're focused on for the cohort. So welcome, David.
Hey, thank you, Hillary. Hey, everyone. David Abel, based in Louisville, Kentucky, and I on our client solutions team at USGBC, which means I focus on helping cities, towns, counties kind of understand the technical requirements of LEED for Cities, how to move through the process and take advantage of all the great resources that we have. And so I'm going to share a little bit more about those requirements of the rating system and how it's used and give you a taste of kind of the types of education and orientation you'll get when you join the cohort in a much more detailed way. All right, next slide. So, as Hillary said, that USGBC has really been focused on transforming how buildings, cities, and communities are really designed, constructed, and operated. And LEED for Cities goes beyond buildings to measure sustainability at that jurisdiction-wide scale. Next slide. Yeah. And so the local government leadership program and the certification cohort focus on LEED version 4.1 for existing cities, the kind of technical name of the certification of the rating system. And so this rating system is really being used to transform how cities operate, right? It's institutionalizing sustainability, encouraging the adoption and regulations that really support resilience, equity, and drive climate action. Next slide. And so, how are places doing all these things, right? It's LEED for Cities is really used in a variety of ways. It's a framework that provides context and language to what it means to be a sustainable place. It gives metrics and programs to say, what does sustainable transportation look like? What does land use that's sustainable look like? How do we improve quality of life? So the rating system is full of all those things that really give really meaning to a term that can be mean different things to different people. Um, in addition, really most importantly, it's a certification program. It's a measurement tool with vigorous vetted standards that have been developed by experts and industry leaders and practitioners in the field to assess existing conditions of sustainability. It's used for accountability to commitments and to identify areas of opportunity for improvement. And importantly, it's also a tool to celebrate the hard work that's being done by local governments and gain recognition and bring joy to the work. Next slide. So kind of to dial down to another level and understand how it does all these things, let's look at the framework. So LEED for Cities measures sustainability in a holistic manner. Um, Here you can see the 7 main categories and the underlying prerequisites and credits. So we have integrative process, natural systems, transportation and land use, water efficiency, energy emissions, materials and resources, and quality of life. These are all the main categories that cities will evaluate themselves against. Next slide. So to look at the rating system kind of in a different way, every category has both prerequisites and credits. The prerequisites are all required in order to certify. You have to meet the prerequisites. And the credits are optional, but typically places will really evaluate themselves against these credits. So next slide, we'll take a closer look at our prerequisites. So we have 5 performance prerequisite categories in the rating system. For transportation, it's vehicle miles traveled, water is domestic water consumption, energy is greenhouse gas emissions, materials and resources relate to solid waste generated and solid waste diverted. And then quality of life has 9 indicators related to education, equitability, prosperity, and health and safety. So these are all kind of those quantitative measurements that you're scored on and report on, and everyone needs to report these. To kind of talk to these for a moment, so that the quality of life indicators are all indicators that we could go out this afternoon onto the US Census website or other national databases to grab the indicators for any city, town, or county in the US that's doing the program. Transportation is typically held or generated by maybe a metropolitan planning organization or another transportation entity, but it's also available through online tools like Google's Environmental Insights Explorer. Now, water, energy, and materials and resources, those are all indicators that are typically generated locally. And I have been harping on like these are all required, but one of the benefits of the cohort is we work with you to find the appropriate data point. So maybe your municipality does not have city-specific water or city-specific solid waste data. That's the case with a lot of the cities we work with. And we typically will go to maybe the county or the region or even the state at times to kind of find the appropriate data point that works for your local government. The important thing is when you're evaluating this cohort is that, yes, we do have access to this data, and we'll work with the Lead for Cities team to kind of figure out how to put it into the format that works for the certification. Next slide. So going back to kind of how we measure sustainability, we have those prerequisites, but we also have the credits, which make up the majority of the rating system. And the credits, the way a city typically moves through the process is they really evaluate themselves against every credit to see if they're meeting maybe the outcome aspects of that credit, the kind of the quantitative measurements that are often seen as thresholds or trend lines, or if they have a policy or program in place that are usually listed as strategies and credits. So go to the next slide and we'll check out an example of a credit. So our energy efficiency credit is a really good example of one that kind of has several options. So in it, it has 5 different options that you can pursue to achieve different points. The first 4 options really focus on infrastructure and energy efficiency within infrastructure. So are you meeting a certain threshold in terms of kind of the buildings that you're doing energy audits on? For street lighting, have you essentially converted X percentage of your street lights to a more efficient standard? And so if people are already meeting those thresholds, that's great. They usually get more points in that credit. But for places that have not made those investments, haven't kind of hit the trend line yet, many credits have a final option that focuses on the kind of the programs and policies that are implemented to drive progress in that credit. So the energy efficiency programs and policies option in this credit talks about, do you have certain incentives in place or programs in place to really drive energy efficiency? So that's just kind of a great example of the types of credits that are in the rating system that you will be going through the process to kind of evaluate your performance against. Next slide. So as I said, the certification program is all about kind of achieving credits, achieving prerequisites, and generating and earning points along the way. Depending on how many points you earn, you kind of achieve different levels of certification. So the pie chart here is great to highlight that the performance prerequisites are really important. They get you about 1/3 of the points, but the vast majority of the points come in the form of those credits. So the things that you're kind of doing on the ground. All right, next slide. So really just to reiterate here, that the data that's collected in the certification process really provides cities with a baseline assessment of existing conditions. Where do you stand in 2026, or whatever year you certify in terms of our framework? The data and certification goes a long way to inform future policy agendas, to inform future budgets and investments. And it also really helps to communicate the work that's being done by the sustainability staff, both internally to other departments, to elected officials, then externally. Like I said, it really gives you that language to carry the message of sustainability. Next slide. And one of the things that is less quantifiable that we see time and again is that the certification process and the event of certification, it brings joy to the work you're doing, and it also really helps you internalize sustainability across the city departments. So the data collection process requires staff going out to different departments, making new connections to get information. It both elevates the office and the person's role in the city, and it shows other departments their role in helping to achieve the city's sustainability goals. So, the conclusion of the cohort, we hear that a lot of like, by going through this process, I learned who my go-to person is in public works to help implement these lighting efficiencies that we're trying to do, or whatever it may be. I think Mackenzie's going to start talking about the cohort, but I kind of spoke at a pretty high level of the rating system requirements, but a part of that cohort is helping you to understand the nuances of the rating system, the different programs and policies that you think might fit our requirements, if they do or not, that you really get a hands-on approach to understanding how the things you're doing meet and line up with LEED for Cities. So feel free to drop questions in the chat that I'll hop over there to answer those as they come up. But thanks for joining, and look forward to working with you in the cohort.
Thank you, David. So now you've all heard sort of, we know who USGBC is. We know we've been working on sustainability in many different ways throughout the US and the world for many, many years. And you've heard a little bit about LEED v4.1, the rating system. So now let's talk about the cohort and how it supports local governments in doing this work. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm the fellow of the LEED for Cities Certification Cohort, and so my sole role is to support local governments in certification. And I'd like to add that I came to this role as a elected official in my city of La Crosse, Wisconsin, who joined the 2024 cohort. And look forward to sharing a little bit more with you about the lens that I bring to this work in supporting local governments. So our annual LEED for Cities certification cohort is designed to support U.S. local governments who are ready to certify in LEED v4.1 for existing cities. It's worth noting, though, that any local government, whether you're a city, county, town, village, borough, can certify in LEED for Cities on their own. But if you need or want additional support, you can apply to participate in the certification cohort program, which runs April 1, 2026 to March 31, 2027, and every year on that timeline. Our certification cohort has long been supported by Bank of America, and with their support in partnership, we've directed support to nearly 120 U.S. local governments in the cohort alone, representing more than 54 million people through this program. A lot of local governments come and ask us, what is the specific support of the cohort? And there are many ways that local governments receive support. The first and one that is always of interest for very obvious reasons is financial support. So as a local government being accepted into our LEED for Cities certification cohort, you receive a 1-year silver level membership, which we'll talk about those benefits more. And then if the local government is not already registered in LEED for Cities, they receive registration. The last and important to note is you have the ability to request the $8,000 certification fee subsidy. You do not have to request it. You must elect to request that $8,000 fee subsidy, which is paid at the time of preliminary review. We can ask any questions at the end of the call related to this, but we'll dig a little bit deeper into it as well. So in addition to the financial benefits of the program, our local government cohort participants receive many, many, many benefits, including all of the benefits that come with silver level membership, which will outline access to green building policy and advocacy support from our policy and advocacy team. We have education that's tailored to local governments. We have guidebooks, customized tools to make it easier for local governments to reach their goals. Of course, you have access to staff one-on-one support from myself as well as David in technical support with client solutions. We have monthly cohort calls, and then we also have optional office hours, which usually fall 2 weeks after the monthly cohort call, so that local governments in the cohort can come together and ask questions in a study hall style setting. We create customized certification pathways based on your unique goals and needs. Oftentimes, when local governments apply to the cohort, we ask them what they're doing in their community now. Are you working on your first ever climate action plan? Do you have one already that you're working on an implementation plan? Are you working on things like comprehensive rezoning or comprehensive plans? What are you doing in your community right now that we can line up with certification to ensure that you're reaching your goals and setting the most appropriate goals that are in alignment with global standards that are achievable in your community? And then we also have excellent support for public relations and marketing. And the beauty of the program is that you're doing it in community. So we like to emphasize that you're coming together with a cohort of local governments who are very much in the trenches with you all day in and day out doing this work. And we see that as a space where you can invest in yourself and glean the insights from other local governments across the nation. Here's a few examples of just pathways that we create. So as a local government official myself, I often ask staff, like, what do you need in order to get this work done? And oftentimes they say, I just need you to tell me what to do and what you want to see us do, and we will do it. But a lot of times the barrier is just knowing what the next step is, and that's really the beauty of the product, the rating system in itself, is you have a guidebook telling you what is best practice, and then we are here to help you take certification month by month, step by step, bite by bite, so that it is much more manageable. If you're not already a member, you receive silver level membership. If you are already a member, you have your membership extended. And membership offers many, many benefits. Here are some on the screen that are just tailored for local governments. You have access to members-only resources. This is for all employees of the local government. So it's not just your team. It can be for the entire organization in your community. We have discounts on professional credentials. Some of you may have those. Some of you may want them. And 30 hours of education on our course catalog. Silver level membership is excellent for the local government leadership program and our cohort, because we have curated education for you all, and 30 hours is a great amount of hours to give you for free so that you can pair it with your certification. Some local governments do have green building policies, or you're working on LEED buildings or some other project in a different rating system. With the membership, you do get big discounts on those, so that can be a big benefit. And then lastly, you all are the experts in the field. Part of membership means you can participate and you're eligible in participating in LEED balloting of rating systems, committees, and working groups. And so we always like to say LEED is built for and by the people. And so we yield to the actual practitioners in making sure that this is upholding the highest possible standard, leadership standard for local government sustainability. We'll hear a little bit more about our peer-to-peer learning community. This is a cohort model for a reason. We know and we hear loud and clear that local governments want to be in community with one another to learn from each other and take new ideas forward in your own communities. You'll see here a list of all the local governments so far as of 2025. This is, to be clear, the cohort participants. We have many more local governments who are pursuing certification on their own, but you can see as color-coded on the screen the participants and the geographic locations of folks who've participated in this cohort in years past. You'll also notice there's a huge cluster in Florida. It's true, Florida has the most registered and certified local governments in the world. So we'll see. It looks like kind of the Midwest and some other areas are creeping on in. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. And before we wrap up, last two bits, and then we're going to hear from participants themselves. This is really a snapshot of the year. So after the application for the cohort is announced and applicants are announced, we commenced the program April 1. That first month is getting organized with you and your team, whether it's a team of 2 or a team of 5 or 6. We'll make sure that you are hooked up in your membership, you're registered, and you have the ability to log in to the platforms that we use so that we can have a successful year. Then we'll convene a 2-day orientation, that's 2.5 hours each, where you'll meet your entire cohort that you'll be spending the next 12 months with. You'll get sort of a deep dive into the rating system and do some hands-on learning in breakouts and in other creative ways. And we spend the majority of the year collecting data and assembling the data as it should be for preliminary review. In January and February, we aim to start submitting our applications for certification so that we have time to reflect on the findings and prepare the next steps. A lot of times we focus on certifying, but one of the biggest benefits of certifying is understanding where you are against universally accepted best practices. And then you can start really reflecting and figuring out what your priorities are as a local government and the next steps you'll take. And then don't forget, we celebrate in March and beyond as local governments start certifying, and we prepare case studies, stories, videos, plans, reports, and we have many examples of those as local governments take their results forward. Here's just a smattering of feedback that we hear about what local governments and participants value about our program. Many that you will see are about access to technical support, network of colleagues, our assistance in helping local governments collect the data is huge. We all probably know what it's like to be a sustainability team of 1. So any support in capacity building is important. The result, we aim for participants to leave the program feeling like they gained a community of people doing this work, gaining leading technical knowledge. You feel like you invested in yourself so that you can continue taking this work forward in your community, build cross-departmental collaboration, and be prepared to take what you find and bring it forward to better your communities. You'll see the application timeline here on the screen. This is posted on our website. We'll make sure you have links in the chat. Application is technically open now. We'll have a formal call for applications December 1. But if you go to the website now, you can see the application and the submission form. Applications are due February 13th. We will announce decisions on February 27th, just 2 weeks later, because who can't stand long waiting times for grant applications? All of us, right? The program will commence April 1, as I mentioned. We'll have a cohort orientation just before the beginning of May, and then the program will end March 31st, 2027. And now I'm really, really grateful and just honored to have 2 excellent panelists here today so that you can hear from local governments who have been in the process and who are currently in the process and haven't submitted yet. So I'm going to introduce these 2, then I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other and make this conversational. So Tina Beto Jennings is the Sustainability Manager of the LEED Gold certified city of Boca Raton, Florida. Was in the 2024 cohort, has a very interesting story that I'll let her share. And then we have Max Charloni, who is in Cook County, Illinois. He's the community outreach coordinator of their Bright program and is currently in the 2025 cohort, working through certification as we speak. Welcome to both of you. I'm going to stop sharing. And we have a few questions just to kick us off to get the conversation started. And so before we get to those questions, I just want to give the stage over to Tina first and then Max, and just introduce yourself. Let us know what brought you to the cohort and some of the things you're most excited about.
Thanks so much, Mackenzie, for having me here today. I'm so excited to be able to talk about the Lead for Cities cohort because it was such a wonderful way for me to get introduced to the sustainability initiatives here in Boca Raton. So I do have an interesting story. So I came to the city of Boca Raton having been in the world of environmental conservation, but mostly in the regulatory side for a while. So when I first took this position just a year ago, first thing on my desk was this Lead for Cities application, and the previous sustainability manager had joined us into the cohort. So they were a couple months into it, but I had never heard of Lead for Cities before. I've, of course, had heard of LEED buildings and LEED certification for buildings, but did not know that there was a Lead for Cities process. And I have to say, it turned out to be the greatest thing for me coming into Boca Raton as sustainability manager, because I was on my own to make those connections to other city departments to find out what they were working on, to find out who I even needed to talk to. I was bounced to so many different places sometimes till I would find the right individuals and the right data. So it was just overall an incredible process in allowing me to start kind of breaking down silos among city departments, introduce myself, get the data I need to bring back to the cohort to help me out with putting together the application packet and applying for those credits and prerequisites. So it was just an amazing way for me to get to know the city and everything going on in it.
Thanks, Tina. I think it is so wild to think you've been in your role for just a year. You've been an amazing example of how you can leverage Lead for Cities to really line it up with whatever you're doing in the local government. It just so happened that you used it to figure out everything about the local government, which is such a cool story. Max, you are in a county, one of the most populous counties, right? And you're in the current 2025 cohort, so you have not yet submitted preliminary review. We'll dig into that a little bit more, but we'd love to have you introduce yourself. Let us know what brought you to the cohort and what you're excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mackenzie and everyone from USGBC for inviting us and me here today to speak about this. Unlike Tina, I was the one that encouraged the county to get involved in this, so I had a little bit more of a head start to know what was expected, but certainly I've learned so much about the process by being a part of this cohort, working with folks like Mackenzie and David and all the other cohort participants. But to back up for a second, like Mackenzie said, I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for Cook County, Illinois. Cook County is the county that Chicago is situated in, so there are 5 million residents, about 1,000 square miles that we oversee and are a part of our jurisdiction. So we are quite large, the second largest by land area in the country. But like Tina and everyone has said, it's been really a great way for me to learn more about what we offer. I think what's exciting for me was the idea of learning more of what Cook County has. I wasn't really aware of what county government did before working in this role. And just hearing about the opportunity when I was at the LEED Green Build Conference in Philadelphia in 2024, I met with Mackenzie and some other local participants, to include some staff at Chicago who helped to get Chicago certified a couple years before. Um, we're trying to do it. So it's just been great to kind of learn more about the process, to be more involved with these programs with the staff that are doing all the important work that we see every day, but maybe don't realize is happening, and to be on the same team to represent Cook County and our region as a leader in this field.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, it was great to meet you at the Public Sector Roundtable at Greenbuild in Philadelphia just 1 year ago. I appreciate that you mentioned that you initiated certification. I didn't realize that there's that comparison with Tina sort of walking into her desk in her room and seeing on her desk that she was like, okay, I guess I'm doing LEED for Cities. But you initiated it. So just telling that everybody comes to this work differently. So I'm going to move to my first question, which is for Tina in Boca Raton, who also taught me that it's not Boca Raton. So anyone on this call that didn't know that, now you do. You all recently announced that you've certified gold in LEED for Cities, and just a month ago, a month and a half maybe. So can you share a little bit more about what you gained? Yeah, like that's huge. I know Tina was sweating a little bit, not thinking that she was gonna get gold. So yeah, all those claps emojis can definitely ensue now. Can you speak a little bit more about what you gained in the cohort, as you know, that new staff member, but just in the cohort in general? What did you learn from the process? And what were some key takeaways from your results?
So through the process, obviously you're basically benchmarking all these different sectors of sustainability within your city. I would say the kind of toughest battle for me, and the thing that I learned kind of the most about the city, was about our water efficiency. So one of the first things I was tackling was our water efficiency prerequisite credit. And Boca Raton, like most cities in South Florida, we use a lot of water for irrigation on residential properties. So right off the bat, I was kind of nervous that I was hitting this hurdle where we weren't going to be able to meet our prerequisite of per capita water usage because it was so high. So being able to talk that through with the cohort, especially Mackenzie and David, and having them provide me examples of other municipalities that had to go through an alternate route for certification to meet those prerequisites. I had to come up with a plan of how we're going to reduce residential water usage by the time we recertify. So having them to guide me through that process was invaluable. I never would have been able to make it just past that, one of those first basic prerequisites, without them. But I was also glad I got to tackle that first, because everything after that was a bit more smooth sailing. Sure, there were bumps in the road, but I would say that was the largest hurdle. And it taught me a lot about how to use the cohort resources and the materials available to us in the Dropbox to see what other municipalities have done. It really helped me push forward through that hurdle. I also did find the Dropbox resources, other municipalities and counties' applications, to be so helpful. Many municipalities experience similar issues or similar programs to what we have here in Boca Raton. So it was kind of nice to be able to pick and choose municipalities from all over the country that were able to assist me in finding data that I needed, writing the application in the appropriate way to be able to earn those credits. So all of that was invaluable, and it all just came directly from the materials provided by the cohort.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, thanks for shouting out the resources folder. We do curate, put together a folder of resources that are tailored to the local governments that we're working with. And yeah, it's just another benefit of being in the cohort, having access to resources that you might not otherwise have had. Thanks, Tina. Max, so you are currently in the 2025 cohort. Tell us how it's going. You have not yet submitted for preliminary review. But I think people on the call would love to hear what your experience is sort of right now as someone who's still working toward that goal, and any sort of insight you'd like to share with the group here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being part of the cohort has been very beneficial to me and the team working on this application here in Cook County. To reiterate what Tina said, the resources that Mackenzie and her team have helped to organize, in particular those sample applications from other municipalities, is just really helpful to demonstrate what has been done in the past, the level of detail needed, but also just how to find examples of the data that'll be necessary to apply or to use in the application to achieve LEED for cities. So I think being part of the cohort for that reason alone is just talking to Mackenzie and her team and having these monthly calls with the cohort to go through the process and all the resources available alone has been super helpful for our team to make progress. Certainly, it's not something to belittle the time and effort it'll take to become certified. I mean, we all have normal job goals and responsibilities that we need to achieve, so this is all an add-on to that. It's very achievable, but certainly something that I think is important to realize takes time. Especially thinking about Cook County and counties in general, it can be hard to sort of um, distinguish when a credit is designed and how it really applies to a county when we have different, I guess, experiences of different challenges to face. Again, there's a lot of unincorporated space. There's 134 municipalities in Cook County that we have to try and dig the data for, or just affirm that water is being delivered, which is a very easy thing to do, but to do it many times can be a challenge. And so working with McKinsey to find ways to streamline that, to understand what is required is helpful, because being a county just poses different challenges, especially being a larger county. But again, working with Mackenzie, working with the resources available, has been really helpful to make it really digestible, something that we believe we can apply for preliminary review this calendar year. That's the goal that our team has set, to do that initial review and then a final application in 2026. I think what's been the challenges that come from the county can also be, on the flip side, some of the ways that LEED Proceeds is set up to allow for credit points to be achieved from things beyond what is laid out. So there's the innovative credit and regional priority credits that I'm sure David and Mackenzie will talk about more, which just gives us the chance to say, like, beyond what even LEED Proceeds is asking of us, there's even more that we are doing, that really gets to the same effort and end goal of creating the most sustainable and equitable and positive place to live, work, and play in Cook County. So I think the way that Lady for Cities is designed is awesome for that. It can be a challenge for counties to achieve some of the goals, but there's also a lot of other ways that we've found out to be able to achieve the credit scores necessary. And we're looking forward to applying again in the new year. Our goal is platinum because why not achieve the highest level? More realistically, we'll probably achieve gold, but we're doing everything we can to get those maximum credit possible.
That's awesome, Max.
Kenzie, I'm sorry,
This
can
is
I
the
add one
first
more thing?
time.
Because
Yeah.
Max made me think about it, but here in Boca, those innovation credits, that's what got us to our gold level. If those innovation credits weren't available to us, I think we would have probably been at silver. So that was amazingly helpful to be able to really highlight some of the outside the box sustainability things we're doing here in Boca, especially in terms of environmental education. And another thing that just really kept me on track was the calendars that the cohort provided. I really tried my best to keep up with at least obtaining the data that I needed for whatever particular credit area we were looking at in a given month. So that way I never really fell behind. So I just wanted to make sure I added that in. I thought it was an important point.
Yeah. Thanks, Tina. You all are touching on such critical things. I want to back up just a little bit and have David come off mute and just address the county difference. So Max was talking about how, he has 34 municipalities. So it's not the case, right, David, that we're going to ask him to report on all of those municipalities for a county certification?
Yeah, I think in general, it's a nuanced approach to the rating system. There are credits where they will just be focusing on the unincorporated areas of the counties, and then other credits, kind of ones about transportation and land use. Those ones might kind of evaluate what is happening in the cities as well as in the county areas, and so. We have guidance documents, and we work closely with counties that are going through the rating system to kind of work through these bigger picture questions. That they run into. And I'll say there's some credits that are easier for counties to pursue and some credits that are easier for cities to pursue. So there is a balance kind of throughout the rating system.
Yeah, and David, can you just briefly overview what the innovation credit is, since there are two categories not on the framework that folks have
Yeah,
seen today?
a little bit of like a bonus category. We are innovation, 10 points total between the two, and in the innovation category we can get up to 6 points. It's a chance to kind of create your own credits, to create your own goals that you have, that maybe you have an interesting program that the rating system isn't really capturing. Create a credit about how you are with requirements and how you're meeting those requirements, and get points for that. And then a regional priority section that kind of in a similar way allows you to speak about the different kind of partnerships you have in your region to address issues that are ongoing.
Thanks, David. Tina, I wanted to come back to you a little bit on your mention of your water data surprise. So one thing that we talk about a lot is like certification and reaching your goal. We like to talk a lot about that because it's such a big effort and milestone. And I want to know if you can talk a little bit more. You mentioned you learned a lot about your domestic water usage. Tell me more about that and what you aim to do sort of moving forward.
Yeah,
Tell
that's
us.
a great
I
question.
should say.
So, our city, I have to say, even though our water usage is high, we are a 100% reclaimed water facility. So our utility services, any water that comes in through our wastewater gets treated to at least, I want to say, secondary standards, where it can be reutilized through irrigation systems throughout town. So it's used to irrigate at least half of the golf courses in the city. And it's also used to irrigate residential properties in locations where that reclaimed piping is available. So one of the things I'm going to be pushing for in the future, even though utility services has been a little reticent at this point, is to see if we can encourage council to invest in possibly expanding the IRIS, that's our irrigated water usage. It might not help us though completely, obviously, with our per capita water usage, because people still have to pull the water out from their potable water before it can be reused. So I'm going to also make a concerted effort to do more outreach, public outreach and education on reducing water usage. Just over the past couple of months, I've had two or three water conservation talks with local organizations. One of them was a gated community housing development. One was with a group of after school kids at a local program at our community garden. And then I also reached out to the Boca Raton Garden Club, and they wanted me to come in and do a talk on water conservation as well. So I've really been pushing that hard. And I also will provide outreach materials with my newsletter, which goes out at least quarterly, sometimes more, to really make sure that people are understanding how much water we're utilizing and why we need to cut back. Our educational outreach programs that are very robust, our Gumbo Limbo Nature Center, our Children's Science Explorium, they also do a fabulous job of really driving home water conservation and why it's important. So I think through all of those efforts, we should be able to keep on track with trying to reduce our water usage to meet those different criteria that I set out for us, those different goals I set out for us by the time we recertify in 5 years.
Thank you, Tina, for sharing that. I think it's always a little jarring when you learn new information and then have to figure out what action you're going to take, but that really is like the power of the rating system. And so I appreciate you sharing your experience and what you've done since certifying. Max, so feel free to also answer this question if there's anything surprising that is being identified as a priority for Cook County. But I also want to give you both the opportunity to share any last feedback, and then we'll address some questions in the chat, which may be for USGBC folks, but also for our two panelists.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of a surprising priority, the only thing that comes to mind is our solid waste score for the prerequisite was a little lower than we thought it'd be. Similar to what Tina said with her water score as well. And we know it's an issue. There's, again, a lot of land to try and manage and offer services to, and we know we're not the best at that in certain areas in particular of the county. So I think really getting the score back and just having all the more data to use for future policy implementation is really what we're looking to take out of this certification. We're not going to be able to change much of what we do as a countywide, in the next, month and a half before we apply initially and whenever we end up fully applying. But we know that whatever score we get and whatever points we're missing and issues that we identify or things we're just not doing to the best of our ability, will be things we want to consider and really try and propose action for in the future. So I think that's probably what's most surprising so far is it's been a low score. But really what's been great is just seeing all the other departments we work with from public health and of course our department for environment and just seeing their master plans for different parts of the county and how they really apply to what LEED for Cities is working to achieve as well. I think my final takeaways for this is it's important to definitely build that team, whether that means like in Tina's case is working to identify those partners that do the things that is required to achieve certification, or if you have the staff capacity. We're fortunate to have two of us working on this application with help from our local USGBC chapter, Illinois Green Alliance, just to help try and split it up and make this the most digestible opportunity possible to get through all the data and information and writing the narratives required. So work on building that team to identify that. I think setting aside time regularly to do this is helpful. I saw a question in the chat about how much time is used. It varies by the week. At the end of our fiscal year, so we are not spending much time on things outside of our fiscal responsibilities right now. But we have the one meeting a month. I probably try and spend 5 to 10 hours a month total on applying for these credits. And again, that changes and it's pretty fluid but between the months. But it really is digestible if you can make that plan ahead. And I think setting aside time in your calendar, blocking off other meetings to doing this work is what's helpful for me. And be open to the cohort and the partners there. We've talked with some other local counties that are applying in the cohort, so it's been good to kind of share ideas with them, what challenges they're facing, and opportunities that we can find together to be certified.
Thank you, Max. And I think this is the first time I at least am remembering that you're going for platinum. And so that is certainly exciting. And yeah, I think that it's going to be really fun to see you all move through review, which we also, of course, support with. For anyone on the call wondering, yeah, it's definitely incredible. And thank you as well for addressing the question in the chat. We're going to transition to chat questions here. But I want to give Tina one last moment to just give any last remarks, and then we will address some questions in the chat.
Yeah, so I just want to, kind of stress again just how amazing the whole process was in really allowing me to learn the city. And it hasn't only benefited me in terms of being able to reach the gold certification, but it's also helped me in developing now my greenhouse gas emission inventory. When I needed data for that, I knew exactly who to go to at FPL, in our utilities department and our waste management services. And now as I'm updating our sustainability action plan, I'm able to take a look at where we earned credits in our LEED for Cities and where we didn't. And now where we didn't earn credits, but where I think we can, is what I'm going to build into my sustainability action plan. I'm going to set actionable items that'll help us achieve the credits that we did not receive in the previous round. So it really is guiding my entire set of goals and initiatives for the community. And one thing that I don't even know if I've told Mackenzie this before, but one of the, I think, most interesting tangents, kind of side projects I got out of all of this was when we were looking at land use. I found out that the city actually had a program for designating historic trees. And as I was looking through that data, I found out that we have a historic green buttonwood in this eastern section of town by the beach that we have a picture from in 1928. And it was pretty mature at that point. So we knew this tree is at least over 100 years old. And it's our centennial year here in Boca. So I decided what a great opportunity to outreach to our community, talk about the importance of tree canopy, coastal resiliency, and it turned into this amazing birthday party for a tree that we had, over 60 attendees from the local neighborhood. We encouraged everybody to come by walking or biking, and many of them did. And it was just a really great opportunity to bring the city together that I probably never would have known about. So really diving into all of the credit areas teaches you so much about your city. Even if you've been there a long time, you might find yourself learning things you didn't know before. So I'm so appreciative of this whole process. It's already made Boca better, for sure.
Wow, Tina, that is so amazing. I think one of the interesting things about this last cohort year is that everyone in local governments is talking to each other about what they're doing in their communities, and then sort of like crowdsourcing ordinances or whatever other examples were occurring in that local government. And tree preservation ordinances are big this year. I know there's like a big federal grant, so it's cool to see you all working on these tangential projects as well. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Max. We really appreciate having you here and talking just openly to people who are interested. There are a few questions in the chat. Let's see. I wanted to make sure the Indianapolis question was answered. Anyone from my team can shout out questions if I may have missed them. We will follow up, of course, with all of you with resources for those who are interested. I know there's lots of information in the chat. Dawn and Moline, Max kind of touched on the monthly time commitment. We tend to say, it could be at like 3 hours a week. Then it's different for every place depending on sort of the organization of the local government. Max was talking more about 8 to 10 per month. But we try to make it as bite-sized as possible so that it's not, taking over your entire week every week for a year. Maria, we will reach out to make sure that your questions are asked since you had to head out. If you are in South America, the cohort is only for U.S. local governments. But there is some effort on getting a cohort going outside of the U.S. Nevertheless, there is a lot of support we can offer for global local governments. We do have a number of non-U.S. local governments who are certifying or certified. Let's see. Michael, did you have full support from city county leadership prior to applying in the cohort? We are getting close to time, but Tina or Max, do you want to touch on that? It is not required. That's one of the reasons why we design it the way we do, but feel free to answer that.
Yeah, so here in Boca Raton, as far as I know, since we entered the cohort before I got here, it was actually city council driven. So being that there's so many communities in Florida that are part of the Lead for Cities program and we're getting certification, I'm sure somebody on council found out about it and they're like, hey, we meet all these requirements. So it actually was driven by council in our case.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, Max.
Yeah, I was just say quickly, the director for our department brought it up to our board of commissioners for the county, so I'm sure they approved it at some point. I can't say for sure, but I can't imagine why they wouldn't. I know we've had to work with a media team for the county to approve a press release that was sent out that were involved. So there was some level of acceptance and approval of the process.
Thanks, Max. And then I'll just say, one of the reasons why we offer financial support and as minimal as possible, like red tape, is so that you all don't have to go get legislative approval. Of course, some local governments have control over how much staff capacity goes to what. So it varies, and we're here to support you on that. We are at the top of the hour, so I want to respect all of your time. But I want to just quickly make sure you all know that you can apply now on our website. We have dropped links in the chat, and we'll send a follow-up call, or excuse me, email to everyone so that you have that information. You have a QR code here on the screen. If you have any questions at all, please email us at cities@usgbc.org. I will send out this slide deck as well to apply. The application is a form online, but there's a PDF version available as well if you want to take a peek. Thank you all for being here today. We very much appreciate your time. Thanks again, Tina and Max, and you all have an excellent day.
Thanks, everyone.
Mackenzie,
Good
thank
luck.
you.
Thank you, Tina. Love the tree story.